morning, everyone. I guess we'll go ahead and get started with our session this morning. It is the Lead Awareness and Prevention session. Our guest speakers this morning are Chelsea Perry with EPA Region 6. Francine Hackett was on our agenda this morning, but unfortunately she couldn't make it today. So our other speaker is Nick Clark with Cherokee Nation. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Chelsea. Chelsea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, everyone. How are you? My name is Chelsea Perry. I'm in the Region 6 Land and Chemical Redevelopment Division and the lead-based branch. I have Mike Adams. He's our Regional Lead Coordinator. And I believe also we have Doug Cornell in our region as well. Today's presentation we'll cover lead-based paint, preventative measures, EPA lead laws and regulations, Region 6 outreach efforts and materials, updates on hazards, standard, and dust leadness levels. Let's get started. To understand the impact of lead-based paint exposure among young children, young adults, basic information about lead-based paint and where lead is found is notably important. Lead is naturally found in small amounts in earth crust. Exposure to lead can be toxic to humans and young adults. Lead is found in all parts of the environment, air, soil, water, and even homes. Much exposure comes from past use of lead-based paints in homes. In older homes and buildings, in 1978, federal law banned consumer use of lead-based paint. Lead-based paint is still present in millions of homes, sometimes under a layer of newer paints. If the paint is in good shape, the lead paint is usually not a problem. Deteriorating lead-based paint, peeling, chipping, chalking, cracking, and damage is a hazard and needs immediate attention. Approximately 24 million housing units have significant lead-based paint hazards, including deteriorating paint and lead-contaminated house. About 4 million of these homes are homes to young children. Who's at risk and how lead affects for children, particularly in homes, children exposed to lead absorb more as less than do adults. Brain and nervous system are more sensitive to damage of lead. No safe level of lead. Even lower levels of lead in the blood of children 6 years and younger can result in behavioral and learning problems, lower IQ and hyperactivity, slow growth, and hearing problems. How your child is exposed to lead. To identify if a child has been exposed, a lead is through a blood test from a pediatrician or a general physician. CDC determined children with elevated blood lead levels of 5 micrograms per deciliter. Not only lead-based paint exposure is harmful for children as well as pregnant women and young adults. Pregnant women may be exposed to lead from breathing lead dust in areas of lead-based paint and deteriorating and during renovations and repairs, which disturb painted surfaces in older homes. Exposure to lead-based paint during pregnancy can result in serious health effects in developing fetus and infant, which includes the baby to be born too early or prematurely, hurting the baby brain, kidney, the nervous system, increasing the likelihood of learning behavior for the child, and putting the mother at risk at miscarriage. If a pregnant woman is exposed to lead from lead dust, in particular concerned because it can result in exposure of developing baby. If you are pregnant and you may know someone who is pregnant, you may have been exposed to lead, talk to a healthcare provider about administering a lead blood test. The common cause of lead exposure, lead-based paint may be a hazard and found in surfaces that children can chew and get lots of wear and tear, such as windows, window sills, doors, door frames, stairs, railings, and banister and porches. How lead enters into the body. from hands and other objects covered with lead dust into the mouth, lead dust breathing in during renovation and disturbed paint. Lead-based paint and hazardous contamination are the most widespread and dangerous source of lead exposure for young children in the United States. How to reduce and eliminate exposure to lead paint and dust. A few tips to reduce sources of lead exposure in your older homes. If your home was built before 1978, here are a few tips. Inspect and keep all painted surfaces in excellent shape and clean up dust frequently with wet cloth or paper towel. Consult a certified lead professional before beginning renovation, repair, and painting projects. Renovation repair projects, activities can create toxic lead dust, and when painting surfaces are disturbed or demolished. Avoid tracking lead dust into homes by wiping and removing shoes before entering homes and placing doormats inside and out of entryway. Also, avoid planting outside gardens or nearby close to older homes because homes with paint chipping can migrate into soil. As a suggestion, using raised planter box for gardening can reduce contamination from lead dust. EPA mission to protect public health and an environment. To ensure the EPA accomplishes its mission by administering and enforcing federal laws to organizations, lead abatement and renovation repair activities may sometimes look similar, but these two programs are regulated different and requires different certification. Into further detail into each program. Lead-based paint activities as an abatement are designed to permanently eliminate existing lead-based paint hazards. And may be ordered by state and local government or may be taken up voluntarily. Lead risk assessment are designed to identify lead hazard. Management strategies and lead inspection are designed to locate all lead-based paint in homes. The purpose of lead abatement activity is to permanently eliminate existing lead-based paint hazards. The lead-based abatement program requires that those who engage in lead abatement, risk assessment, and inspections, homes, and occupied facilities built prior to 1978 to be trained and certified in specific and accurate work safety. Lead-based paint activities are regulated different than the renovation repair painted project, even though in some cases activities are similar. Individuals must be trained and certified to conduct lead-based paint abatement activities, and firms must be certified. In 2008, EPA issued a rule requiring the U.S. of lead safety work practices. The RRP rule aims to protect the public from lead-based paint hazard associated with renovation, repair, and paint activities. Housing or activities not subject to the rules are built 1978 or later. Housing for elderly and disabled, unless the child is under the age of 6, reside there. Minor repairs, maintenance activity that disturbs 6 square feet or less of per painted room. Renovation repair ensures any activity that disturbs paint pre-1978 housing and child occupied facilities. These include activities for remodeling, repair, maintenance, electrical work, plumbing, paint preparations, carpentry, and window replacements. Under the law and regulations, lead renovation repair program rules that require certified and trained to be used to lead safe work practices and requires renovation and repair firms to be certified. Common renovation activities can create hazardous dust level chips. Disturbing a lead-based paint can be harmful to young adults and children. EPA Region 6 maintain authority in RRP in Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Texas, and regional tribal land. The state of Oklahoma, Department of Environmental Quality has authority of the RRP program. Since the pandemic, many homeowners are considering renovation and repair their homes. EPA acts to perform renovation, repair, painting jobs safely. Although RRP repairs do not apply to homeowners' renovation and repair for their homes, however, it's just your yourself probably can create dangerous lead dust. By following the safety procedure to spread from the lead spread dust throughout your home. Before considering renovation, considering hiring a certified RRP contractor, enforce work safety practices by removing all furniture, area rugs, clothing until cleanup is completed. Cover floors, plastic, and window sheets. Get the right equipment using proper clothing and placing heavy duty sheets. Also following good working practices when doing renovations. Region 6 Lead-Based Paint Group continues to develop useful outreach materials and education training throughout the Region 6 training and tribal territories. For several years now, the lead-based paint team has developed planners to support the lead-based paint efforts to spread lead awareness and lead-based paint exposure. Annually, the planners are created and distributed to our partners within the Region 6, local and tribal partners to promote lead-based paint awareness in their communities. The planners include information regarding lead-based paint safety, federal holidays, health-related awareness month, and task line. And the planners is made from recyclable material. If you look to your right, this year, the Children's Health Awareness Month, and from October 24th through October 30th is the National Lead Prevention Poison Week. This is an important week for the EPA. It brings together individuals and organizations from to increase the lead poison awareness in the efforts to reduce child exposure to lead. This week include resources, activities, and webinar to attend. During the pandemic, in-person outreach has halted. In order to reach our audience, traditional outreach practices of direct mails to share information of lead-based paint work practices. The direct mails were mailed to zip codes where pre-1978 housing exists in Arkansas, New Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana. Direct mailers include national lead awareness information, EPA.gov lead websites, and the Region 6 hotline number. New actions to better protect children from danger of lead. Final rules to the lower hazard standards and clearance level for lead in paint. Lead hazard standards help property owners, lead paint professionals, and government agencies to identify lead hazards in residential paint, dust, and soil. The lead hazard standard is used to determine lead hazards by lead risk assessors on the results of wipe samples on floor and window sills. The EPA new hazard levels are 10 micrograms of lead and dust per square foot for floor dust and 100 micrograms for window dust, significantly lower from the previous level of 40 micrograms for floor dust and 250 micrograms for window sills. Lead risk standard is used to determine if the lead hazard exists, and this can only be done by a risk assessor and is based on the results from a wipe sample of floor and window sills. The dust lead clearance level are used to demonstrate an abatement activity effectively or permanently eliminate hazards. On December 21st, 2020, the EPA announced the lowering of the clearance level for lead that can remain in the floor and window sills after lead removal activities, known as abatement. These clearance levels will reduce the lead dust related risk to children in pre-1978 homes and child care facilities where lead abatement activity takes place. The new clearance of levels are 10 micrograms of lead dust per square foot for floor dust, 100 micrograms for window sill, which is significantly lower from the previous level of 40 micrograms of floor dust and 250 micrograms for window sill dust. EPA maintains 10 regional offices within each region. A regional lead contact oversees development of lead poison prevention efforts. We, the EPA, encourage everyone to contact Region 6 lead-based paint hotline to ask questions related to the lead-based paint and work safety practices. Mike Adams is our regional lead coordinator who oversees the efforts in Arkansas, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, and federal recognized tribe and territories. To contact the Region 6 lead hotline, our number is 214-665-7577. I would like to acknowledge and thank you for the invitation for sharing information regarding the health impact of lead poisoning. The Intertribal Council, EPA Region 6 Lead Chemical and Redevelopment Division, within our pesticide and toxic section in the lead-based paint group. Resources and materials are available online at the EPA webpage to locate a certified firm, to become a certified renovator, and how to protect your family. EPA.gov/lead have these links for more information. Now that's it. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
If you want to stop sharing your screen, I think if you, yep, okay. And now you can check your chat box for any questions. So everyone that is on the call today, you can use your chat box to ask, you can either ask me or everyone or Chelsea privately a question. If you're calling in, you would need to email me your question and I can either forward it to Chelsea or we can answer it on the line. So I don't see any questions yet. So you guys have plenty of time to send in your questions. Let me check my email real quick to see if I've received any on an email yet. I don't see questions just yet, but okay, so can you show the slide show before the clearance levels again?
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chelsea. And we have so if you guys want to send in a question a little bit later, like I said, we'll have plenty of time for that. So with that, I will go ahead and we'll move on to Nick's presentation, but we can come back to see for questions after Nick has finished also. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make you a presenter, and that way you can share your screen. Okay, Nick, you should be able to share your screen. Okay, this is Nick Clark with Cherokee Nation, and I will give the floor to Nick. Nick, if you want, yep. Yep, that's good. Looks good. Thanks, Nick. Nick, you have a little gray box in front of your, yep. There's a small one at the bottom too. Looks like you have, yeah, that one, there's just a small one at the top. Yep, looks good. Thanks.
Well rested for today's meetings. My name is Nick Clark. I work for Cherokee Nation Environmental Programs for 9 years. I've been doing lead-based paint inspections, risk assessments, and elevated blood lead level investigations in children for the past 6 years. If you have any questions, feel free to use that text box and I'll do my best to thoroughly answer your questions as they come. Let's go ahead and get started with the presentation this morning. I'm also going to give you a second to read the slides and then I will kind of talk about them. It's not just kids chewing on windowsills that cause lead poisoning, as many people have been taught by past television programs and commercials. Lead dust is usually our main concern when diagnosing the source of lead poisoning in a child with elevated blood lead levels. Children will likely show no signs of lead poisoning, and parents will not know the lead levels of their children without blood testing. Parents that work in a lead-related industry can also expose their unborn children to lead poisoning while still in the womb. So it's very important to have your children tested for lead. I'm going to let you read this one as well. Lead paint was a product that stood up to weather and UV light like no other paint available. Still to this day, paints are not nearly as resistant to the outdoor environment as lead paint was. It can still be found on striping for highways, parking lots, and on high visibility paint for safety related structures such as car stops at your local convenience store and gas stations. In 1978, it was banned for use in residential construction because of new findings that linked lead paint to lead poisoning in children under the age of 6. Nearly 64 million homes before 1978 contained lead paint. Lead is usually measured in micrograms for whatever type of scientific testing that is being performed. It's just kind of a standard measurement for lead. This is a representation of what a microgram is. Microgram is a very tiny amount. I like to think of like 5 grains of salt or less. It's a very tiny amount. Takes very little lead to poison a child, and there still is a large amount of lead in residential homes built before 1978. You can see here 10 micrograms to cause problems when ingested. So that'd be like 50 pieces of salt, if you want to think of it that way. So it wouldn't take much at all to have some problems. Many times, by the time you start seeing these effects that are listed in the on the presentation, the child has already been exposed to lead for a duration of time, and so they're already seeing these issues, but they have been exposed for a while. Lead tricks our bodies into thinking it is calcium, and our body stores it in our bones. Any amount of lead in the bloodstream is not good for your health. Here's some reasons why lead is not good to have in your body. The health effects can be lifelong depending on exposure time. Some of the lead will really stick to you over time. Like I said, it gets into your bones. That's not something that easily comes out. So it's going to stick with you for a while and may have long-term problems if you're exposed for a long period of time. Lead poisoning doesn't just affect the child while they are children, but can also negatively impact them as they go through their adult years as well. Adults can be exposed to lead by sanding old wooden building materials and then breathing it in if they're not wearing a mask. They may melt down lead to make bullets and fishing weights. Maybe they're in the plumbing industry and a solder used has lead in it. There are many lead-related industries that people can bring lead into their homes and expose themselves or their children. And this is what many wooden window troughs look like in pre-1978 homes. The lead dust levels can be extremely high. Friction caused by the window's movement up and down will leave fine dust behind. Window troughs also catch lead dust from the soffit and fascia and siding above them, as well as from the soil in the yard that is stirred up from the wind, and also when you mow your lawns, that dust is also collected in those window troughs. This is a before and after picture. This is an encapsulating paint that is used to cover lead-based paint to prevent it from becoming more deteriorated. It actually softens the material so that it will stick to the encapsulate and the construction materials it is applied to. And after drying, it is extremely hard and it hangs on to all the dust particles. It's a pretty good way to encapsulate. Lead paint could be on just about any painted surface that was built before 1978. You ladies that like to decorate your home with vintage wooden windows and doors, maybe bringing lead dust into your homes without even knowing it. We have tested several old wooden windows on people's walls just to let them know that they got some lead in their house that they brought in. So it's interesting to see that. Every time we go inspect a house, we look for this type of paint deterioration as an indicator whether lead is present on the home. It is many times a sign of lead-based paint. We call it alligatoring. Paint always seems to peel off when not painted over and taken care of. This type of deterioration causes large paint chips to fall into the soil around the home's exterior walls. This can cause high lead and soil levels. This is the exterior view of a wooden window, windowsill and trim, and also some wall siding that is deteriorating. All this paint will eventually end up in the soil and can be tracked in by the feet of pets and people. This is how the children can crawl through it and play with their toys in the lead dust. It's just from all of this paint that falls to the soil and us tracking it in. And also our pets tracking it in if we have indoor pets. On a side note, you look at this picture right here, there's an outlet like right below the windowsill. I don't think that electrical outlet is to code being on the outside of the home without being a ground fault receptacle and having a cover plate to keep the water out, but you know, that's for another class. We see a lot of wild stuff in these old houses that are definitely not to code, and so you never know what you're going to run into when you're out there investigating and inspecting these homes. There could be other hazards as well. This is just a stairwell. Stairs have a lot of different surface areas, as you can see. There's like 7 different things on just this stairwell that to test, and many of them may have more surfaces that need to test, especially if they make guardrails on both sides. I'll show you a picture of an XRF for those who haven't seen one later in the slides. That's what we use to test lead paint with. All right, this is a door. Doors rub the door casings that they are in and hit the jambs when open and closed. This rubbing causes fine lead dust to fall to the floor where we walk, which causes lead dust to be spread throughout the home's floors. This is where young children from ages 6 months to 6 years of age spend most of their time on the floor, and many times they are exposed to lead dust this way from doors and windows. This is a window. An old wooden window. It shows you all of the things that we would have to check while testing, and that there's usually deterioration because these old wooden windows have been in the homes for long periods of time. Wooden windows also create dust from lead paint. The friction from raising them up and down produces dust that can get on the windowsills and troughs. When opened, the wind can blow dust into the interior of the home. So even though that dust is packed up in that window trough and it's full of dirt and dust and leaves and debris, if you open that window and the wind's blowing, that stuff's going to come right in your house, and it's usually a very high level of lead dust. So it's important to keep those windows cleaned and painted. Piping and plumbing fixtures. I'm going to talk just about a couple of these, and I'll talk probably about most of them throughout the presentation. Piping and plumbing fixtures could have lead. It could be the fixture itself or the soldering used. Pottery and dishes you use could have a lead glaze on them that could leach into your food. With increased leaching during microwave use, so when you microwave those dishes that have lead on them, that stuff could leach into your food and cause you to ingest it. Older vinyl mini blinds have been a source of lead exposure in homes we have tested in the past. So yes, your piping, usually when you run your hot water, that's when you're going to have some leaching into your water. The hot side causes it to leach out a little bit. Pottery and dishes. We've tested many cups and saucers and water basins and water pitchers. Many of these things have a lead glaze on them. Most of them were made in Mexico. I don't know what it is, but most of the glazes that come from Mexico end up having an amount of lead in them of some kind. So beware of that. You might not want to microwave those plates and maybe not drink coffee out of them. Older vinyl mini blinds have been a source of lead exposure in homes. We have had risk assessments where we do dust wipes of the window sills. We have had those fail in the past due to the UV breakdown of those mini blinds that cause dust to be left behind in those window sills. So that's something to be aware of as well. This is talking about lead being used for medicinal purposes. If you're using these, you may want to consider non-lead containing medicinal items. No amount of lead in your body is good. Kids tend to put things in their mouth because they're curious about it. When they're little, they're trying to find out about it by using as many of the 5 senses as they can. One of those happen to be taste, and so many times they put things in their mouth to understand what it is and what it tastes like. So this little girl is curious about those paint chips. She may take a bite later. We're not so sure yet. Just looking at those pictures, she's thinking about it. So. Plumbing tends to be hard to get to since it is almost always under a slat foundation and inside of walls. And without major renovations, plumbing and fixtures may be used for a very long period of time. Hot water is more likely to cause leaching of lead into water from those areas of lead use in plumbing. Many older homes may have some amount of lead. There are accredited laboratories that can test lead in water to determine these levels if you are concerned about the lead levels in your drinking water. If you live in an old home or even in schools and older buildings that have been renovated, if the plumbing hasn't been replaced, there could be a lead issue. It's really hard to say without testing. UV light and heat can break down most things when exposed for a long period of time. This does not exclude mini blinds. Look for non-leaded mini blinds when purchasing at the store. You don't want a lead dust problem because of a mini blind that you bought for $4. Here is another source of lead exposure in our environment that are still in our soils at high levels around fueling stations and roadways today. Is the leaded gas that we used to use in our vehicles. We have investigated many homes where a child has gotten lead poisoning from parents remodeling without the knowledge of what lead dust could do to their children. Sanding and scraping paint, as well as removing old materials, are usually the biggest causes of lead dust on a remodel job. So next time you decide to remodel the house, make sure you're prepping for that if your house was built before 1978. This machine is called an XRF. It tests paint by using radioactive source, usually either cobalt 57 or cadmium 109, to determine the amount of lead paint within a square centimeter. That means a centimeter wide, centimeter tall, and a centimeter deep. It will read through all layers of paint on your wall. No matter how many times you painted it, you probably have it painted a centimeter deep. So it will read through every layer and let us know what is in that material. Anything under 1 milligram per centimeter squared is not considered lead-based paint by HUD standards. This door and casing was positive in the picture. You can see how the paint has a reptile skin look to it and is deteriorating. We took this picture this month in April of 2021. So there's still lead out there, guys. We're seeing it every day. We've done many risk assessments lately. Blood testing is the only real way to know the lead levels in a child's bloodstream. At-risk children should be tested more often to know where their lead levels are. Hopefully they are on a decline. If they are not, then they're still likely being exposed to lead and will need further investigation on the source of the lead exposure. Ideally, a child shouldn't have a blood lead level at all. It should just be 0 all the time. But for now, the action level is set at 5 micrograms per deciliter to trigger an investigation, which will hopefully point to the source of lead so it can be eliminated from the child's environment. In these investigations, we will go in and test for anything that we even think could possibly lead poison a child. We test, like I said, saucers, plates, cups. We're going to test all the surfaces in the home, the building materials that they live in. We're going to test their toys. We're going to test everything that we can think of that may possibly poison a child, just to try to find that. This chart here gives us an idea of what needs to be done at different levels of lead in the bloodstream. So 5 to 14, rescreen, start prevention. 15 to 19, determine source and diet advice. 20 to 44, may need medical treatment. 44 micrograms per deciliter or above, serious poisoning, seeking medical care immediately. So this is kind of just a guide of, how serious this is to your child. Or yourself for that matter. This is an XRF, like I said earlier. It has a radioactive source, which could be cobalt-57 or cadmium-109. It measures a square centimeter and will tell us what lead level is in the paint and whether it is considered positive or negative. It also has a keypad where we can enter exactly what surface we are sampling, what side of the room it's on. Some of the lead guns even tell what color the paint is. We tell what the material is, whether it's drywall, metal, wood, plastic, vinyl, whatever it is. And this machine shoots out once we come back to the office, gives us a detailed spreadsheet of our inspection and whether there was lead at the home and what levels they were. It's a very handy machine. They used to have to take samples of every wall, everything that was painted. They had to take samples. So we are thankful that we do not have to do that any longer. Okay, so the 4 types of abatement are removal, replacement, enclosure, and encapsulation. Abatement means we are taking care of the issue with a long-term approach. We're trying to fix it to where it's not an issue even later in life. Okay, so we're going to talk about abatement by removal first. By removing the materials that have lead paint, you have started the process to reduce the likeliness of lead poisoning in the home. This is abatement by replacement. This is the act of replacing the building materials that had lead-based paint. You notice in the picture the old door has been removed and a new door with trim is being installed in its place. This eliminates the lead dust concern for this doorway. You'll remember when I talked about earlier that every time the door opens and closes on a door with lead paint, it causes dust to drop to the floor. So this will eliminate that issue. You should know what you're doing when lead and lead dust. If you're planning to do work on a facility that keeps children under 6 years of age on a normal basis. You should be a licensed contractor that is certified in lead paint removal and cleaning. If lead is on the interior of a home and is not chipping, chalking, pilling, or cracking, then it is fine to leave it in place, but it's not deteriorated in any way. An enclosure is when you cover up the lead paint using a non-lead based material. For example, you could cover the exterior walls of a home with something like vinyl siding or brick or rock or wood. You could cover interior walls with wooden paneling or drywall. These materials will need to be caulked and sealed to prevent dust from falling to the ground after enclosure is installed. So just keep the dust from falling to the floor and children to be able to crawl and walk through them. Lead encapsulating paint can be used, but wet scraping of loose flaking paint will have to be done before encapsulating paint should be applied. And paint chips will need to be caught so they do not enter the soil and should be properly disposed of as well. This does work well if you wet scrape all of the loose flaking paint off. We've seen people try to encapsulate it before they scraped everything off, and it will still try to try to snap and peel off. So it's best that you wet scrape and repaint first, and collect all that, and then before you paint it with encapsulant. It does harden very, very hard, so it's going to hang on to all that dust, and it also softens those wood chips, and so some of it will kind of lay back down after you paint it on there. It softens it up, and then it hardens really hard once it's kind of laid back down, once it dries. Our learning has been refreshed this year during the COVID-19 pandemic. We have relearned that hand washing is essential to not spreading harmful things around and keeping you well. Keeping things that children stick into their mouths clean is essential when you live in a home that has had lead dust. The 2-bucket method of wet mopping is a great way to keep your home's lead dust to levels to a minimum. The 2-bucket approach means to have your cleaning products in one bucket and another bucket of just water to rinse in. This reduces the spread of dust around your home that you're trying to pick up by not rinsing in the same bucket as the cleaner. You could also use a kitchen sink that has 2 basins and to do the same method. Dirt and soil is where lead will be if you have a home that has lead on the exterior or did in the past. So playing in the grass will be safer for your children if lead has been on that property. Food can absorb up some of the lead dust upon ingestion, so feeding your children is not only good for their bodies, but also a safety measure against lead ingestion. And look at how much they like ice cream and bananas. Your kids want to eat. So look at this little girl. She is just chowing down on that ice cream. A proper diet is also a method to fight lead poisoning in children. Children are more at risk when they do not intake proper nutrients. So feed your kids if you live in a home built before 1978. It's important. Soft materials such as stuffed toys, pillows, bedding, and carpet should be cleaned often to prevent lead dust. You can just run stuffed toys, pillows, and bedding through a machine washer, and you can clean carpet with a HEPA filtered vacuum or by shampooing and then using a HEPA filtered vacuum afterwards. And that is all I have today. Thank you guys so much for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions at all, now is the time for us to talk about them.
Thanks, Nick. Let's take a look at the chat box. So we have plenty of time. So you have time to put your questions in the chat box, or if you're calling in, you can email me a question and I can check my email. Nick, do you see anything in your chat box?
Not seeing anything. Having some technical difficulties. Sorry about that.
I have a request for you to put up your contact information again, Nick, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Is there any questions, Karen? I'm not seeing any on my chat box.
I don't see them yet. I had a comment said, nice presentation. Thanks, Nick.
Okay, great.
I've had a request for both of the PowerPoint presentations. So Nick, if you don't mind us sharing, you can send that to me and I will email that out to folks. Let
Absolutely.
me check my email again. And like I said, folks, we have plenty of time. So put your questions in the chat box or you can email me or Nick. And again, if you guys have any questions for Chelsea, it's not too late. You can email me or email Chelsea or put it in the chat box.
Excellent. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Nick. Okay. I'm going to give everybody just a couple of more seconds to put your comments or questions in the chat box. Okay, I don't see any more questions or chats in the chat box, so we'll wrap this session up. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Nick, for your presentations today. And everyone, don't forget to join us at 10:30, the Volkswagen settlement session. So we will talk to you guys in just a little. And if not, have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Karen. Good day.
Thanks, Nick.